All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show, and we are with you straight through until noon. We begin this third hour with this story. The Quebec government is introducing a new bill to overhaul the admission policies for subsidized daycare centers, eliminating criteria based on language, culture, or religion. The new policy will set 6 criteria, including factors such as special needs, socioeconomic hardship, parental employment or education, residence, and Indigenous status. Additionally, 50% of daycare spots can be prioritized under these criteria. Let's talk a little bit more with Alexa Soleil Pariseau, General Director of Autour du Monde, the CPE, the daycare center in Parc Extension. Alexa, welcome back to the program.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm happy you're back on with us. It's not lost on me. The last time you were on this show, we had a discussion about daycares and how parents get in, and I asked you a question.
Yes.
I said to you, is it happening right now where daycares are doing customer shopping, where daycares are kind of sort of choosing the clientele? And, you answered that question, quite frankly, not for your daycare, but that you've seen other daycares do this. Do you think this Quebec bill is a response to that?
I believe that it is. I think that they're trying to make it accessible to everybody. I do think that it might not be the best way to go about it because putting criteria is making it harder for us to try and fill up our spots the quickest way possible. So we talked a bit about how if the spots aren't filled up, then the government comes and cuts the funding depending on how many kids are signed up to the daycare. And I think that this whole process of giving us more structure in picking the children can also maybe backfire on that end of things.
Were there problems, though? Listen, we've heard some stories. A lot of this came out after the Bedford school situation, where we'd heard stories where some daycares were picking the children they would let in based on religion, based on culture. So that was an issue. How do you deal with a problem like that unless you come up with sort of rules, regulations on how daycares can pick the children?
Well, you're right. I think that that's exactly what they're trying to fight, and they're trying to make sure that we're not picking and choosing based on religion and other aspects. I think that, if I take my daycare, for example, we don't serve pork. We're in Parc. We have a community of people that have certain dietary restrictions, so we don't serve pork at the daycare. However, that doesn't mean that we only pick children who do not eat pork. We're just offering this to be inclusive to the community and the reality that we face in the in the neighborhood that we're in.
Let me ask you this, because the legislation is also going to ban religious teachings in government-funded childcare services. They say they want to promote secularism, social diversity, equal opportunities in the province's daycare system. Do you think that, you just brought up some dietary concerns here, but those elements of the bill, do you have any consideration for how you operate? You're in Parc X. You mentioned you've got diversity in Parc X, of course. What do you think about that part of the bill?
So doesn't it sound a little odd to say in the same sentence that we're trying to promote inclusivity and trying to be more, inclusive and accepting of other people, but then also taking away these symbols that the children can have?
But do you ever get pushback from parents? I'm thinking, maybe for the older kids, right? The 4 and 5-year-olds. If you want to teach about, equal, but, that men and women are equal and that kind of stuff, do you ever get pushback on some of the things you do?
For the most part, we do not. I think that we've experienced things as in more of gender and gender identity issues more than anything that had to do with religion.
Yeah.
And we're coming from a neighborhood that has a lot of different religions in it, and I've never, ever seen an issue about it.
So, but do you feel sometimes, maybe you could use backup from the government on that front if you've got a parent that takes issue with some of the stuff you touch on?
I guess we could. I don't know about standardizing it, though. I think that it stays something that, the directors of the daycare should be able to deal with. I can't speak because I've never had this experience, but I'm just worried about the outcome of all of this, and specifically the fact that some of the criteria is like 50%, right? So 50% of the admissions have to be can only be of these certain criteria. But then you start thinking about workplace CPEs. So a CPE that's in a CLSC or in a hospital can only accept 50% of those children from workers in the CLSC. So I think that's going to cause issues for these people who are trying to go to work. They're trying to put their children in the daycare. And what happens when there's no more spots left for the people who are trying to work at, let's say, RDP or, the Jewish hospital or whichever CPAs are around.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, like one of the issues in the whole system is efficiency. Every time there's an empty spot that's not being used, inefficient, and it makes the situation worse for everyone.
Exactly. So I'm wondering, what are we going to do? Are we going to refuse these people daycares because we've already maxed out our 50% capacity?
Alexa, listen, I want to bring up one more subject before I let you go. With Alexa Soleil Pariseau from Autour de Monde daycare in Parc. There's a story out in La Presse in the last week about how sometimes funding, like the government gives extra funding for children with special needs, right?
Yes.
But apparently they're not actually looking if that extra funding at the end of the day goes to those children with special needs. What can you add on that subject? Do you see that?
Well, I mean, in my budget, I try my best to definitely use the money for the children. And, it can be used for multiple different things. So we can start with like educational materials. So if they need specific tools, it can be used to pay for part of the salary of my specialized educator that I have on staff full time. So I guess some people could maybe be using it for other things because you're right, it's not necessarily checked thoroughly. However, they are implementing new ways of making sure that we are using the funds for those specific children. And the money that is sent to us for besoins particuliers or enfants à besoins particuliers is a very broad spectrum. So I'll get it for the children that already have a diagnosis, use it for them, but it can also be used to make sure that the TOS or the specialized educator is checking the rest of the children in the daycare to see if there are any potential diagnoses that could, pop up, and then be able to offer those children the help that they need.
Alexa, listen, I got to leave it there. Keep fighting the good fight, and thanks for hopping on today with us.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Take care. That's Alexa Soleil Pariseau, General Director of the Autour du Monde CPE in Parc.